fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Glad to be with you here tonight. And off to my right is Becca LaBar, as her name tag sort of says down below there. And then, of course, Marty's way over there on my far right. And off to my left over here, Jerry, he's back again and feeling a lot better. And so we're grateful to be with you here tonight. We kind of a special Follow Your Faith tonight, because if our title is Follow Your Faith, here's an example of following your faith, I think, in one sense. So we are glad you're here, Becca, with us tonight. And let me say a brief prayer as we begin. Welcome all of you who are here with us already. Let's open our hearts. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, bless us. Help us to come to realize that you are real, that you really do want a relationship with us, that you really do hunger and thirst for us in remarkable ways, and you really are the hound of heaven who is after us all the time. So bless us as we ponder how to live, how to navigate this beautiful life of ours in the midst of all kind of things that make it very, very much less than beautiful. So help us to share our hearts, our minds, and most especially we pray that Becca might be able to do that for us here tonight. So bless her and bless all of us. And we ask all these things in your precious name, Jesus. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, Marty, off we go.
Hey, Steve, help me out. What episode is this? 113. All right, 113 episodes. When we started this, when I got involved in this project 112 episodes ago, I said this was a project, a program for believers. We don't care from what faith people come from or perspective. It's if you believe in the risen Christ, then that's what we're about. And we've talked about semantics of religion, most of it Catholic, because that's what we know. But it's all about faith. It's all about what faith can do for all of us. And that's why I invited Becca here tonight, because faith can move in many different directions. It's not one way for everyone. We all use it, I think, in different ways. Becca has been on a journey in her very young life, especially compared to the two guys on either side of her. But I don't think, and I'm sure a lot of you think you know Becca, or you've seen Becca around. Becca, you did, worked with our youth here at our Mother of Sorrows. I'm not sure that you know the Becca that we're talking to tonight, and that's not a bad thing. That's just reality. But her story, I think, is one of, you've inspired me. I think where you are in your life now with the start of your business and the way you named your business is all a lesson for all of us. I think that if you looked at this young lady, you'd say, well, she's very pretty. She's bright. She's been around. She teaches. She does all these things. And that doesn't mean that there aren't areas of our lives that are not what they seem to be. But I think you are an excellent, and I hope a lesson to folks tonight that, if you follow the risen Christ, there are some good things that can happen to you, even though at that point when you may not think so. You may think that he's not there for me. And it may take you a while to realize, yes, he is. And I'm not speaking for you. I've been in some places, as I told you earlier, and I know what it did for me. But before we get to that part of your story, I think for the benefit of people who don't know, is tell us who Becca LaBar is. Where'd you grow up? What have you done? Remember, don't wander away from your microphone, but give us a little, this is your life. You're too young to remember what that is. But anyway, tell us who you are.
Okay, so I'm Becca LaBar. This feels like such a loaded question at this point because my life has changed so significantly in the past few years. I've lived in Johnstown my entire life. I went to Conemaugh Valley. I went to UPJ. I went to Mount Aloysius. I worked here for about 5 years with the middle school program. I was the middle school youth minister.
5 years.
Yeah,
Wow,
isn't
wait.
that crazy?
Okay, yeah, I didn't think it was that long.
No.
Okay, good.
So I was in charge of the 6th through 8th grade religious education. Currently, I work full-time as a mental health therapist, and I also own a business. I opened a gym on Main Street downtown called Redemption Fitness in mid-February. So I've always felt like I just had my hand in a whole lot of places, and nothing's really changed about that.
mental health therapist. Was that a
Yes.
goal of yours when you were growing up? Something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, actually, I have a yearbook from like 7th grade, and they make you write in the yearbook what you want to be, and that's what I
Okay,
had.
don't wander away.
That's what I had written in there. I actually started college as an engineer. Did not want to be an engineer, and that was a point that God made it like painfully aware to me my freshman year of college, and I changed things up, got a bachelor's in psych, then went on to Mount Aloysius. Again, just a big God thing. I got to do a assistantship position there in the campus ministry, leading retreats. I ran the Alpha program up there after doing it here, mission trips, things like that. So I got a master's in counseling, started working with some children with autism, ADHD, different behavioral issues. So I went back and got another master's degree in behavior analysis, and then decided to open a gym instead.
Which is, I didn't know
Decided to open a gym. I love that.
I didn't know the backstory. I didn't know about the degrees and the
Yeah.
mental health
I knew
therapy.
about all those parts. Yeah.
Did you?
The fitness side kind of came later, and everything sort of, I see how God was weaving it all together. So
You okay, so that sounds like, well, I grew up, I went to Conemaugh Valley Schools, I went to UPJ, I went to Mount Aloysius, I got a couple of master's degrees. It sounds like you just lived the perfect life as a young person growing up. You had no challenges. You had, you may have had a bad day here or there, but you had a pretty good life. Is that a fair assessment of where you were?
I would say I've had a pretty good life, but one with immense challenges.
What were they?
Um,
If I may ask.
Yeah, you may
Yeah,
ask,
okay.
and this is probably where the part comes in that most people don't know these things about me. I growing up was tough. My
I want to make sure everybody hears you.
I had wonderful parents. I have wonderful parents and a wonderful sister. Many of you probably know my sister Hannah because she worked here as well. But when I was 3 years old, some things started going wrong with my mom. She was having issues with her colon. They took her colon out. She started falling. One thing led to another, and as it's turned out over the course of my life, my mother has a disease that nobody else in the world has. Just her. She's been all over the place. She's been to the NIH. She's been to Lourdes, Johns Hopkins. All the big places, and they've never found another person on this planet who has the same thing that she does. But slowly over time, it stripped her of everything. So it started with the bigger motor skills and then down to the smaller things. At this time, she's completely wheelchair bound. She's lost the majority of her vision, the majority of her hearing. So communication is very difficult. But that regression took place over kind of the course of my life. Just kind of watching her. She was just brilliant. She was the manager of WIC. She had degrees in nutrition and biochemistry, and all of those things were kind of taken away from her as they were from our
Is she
family.
watching us?
I didn't even tell my parents I was doing this.
Oh, okay.
I didn't tell many people. I probably should have.
That's all right,
They can
Well, you
watch it
still
later.
can.
They
You
can
still
watch
Watch
it.
it later, yeah.
They can watch it. It'll be
Yeah.
I'm
online
sure that they
in
will, so.
perpetuity. It'll be there.
It'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was probably my first biggest struggle, and the first time I really remember turning to God as a teenager.
Were you angry?
Oh, for a long time, yes.
I mean, were you angry at God?
Yes, I was.
And how did that manifest itself?
It's weird. There was a period of time, my parents always kind of religiously took us to church. But when my mom stopped driving and things started to get bad, that kind of faded away. And I think that's the time when my anger really started to grow. And so I didn't have a much of any relationship with God. It was very surface level, whatever I had, Christmas and Easter, and that was about it. But I remember very early on feeling like something significant was missing in my life. When I was getting confirmed, they sent us on a retreat to New Baltimore, LaDonna McCreary, which I'm sure many of you know her.
LaDonna should be watching. You had a big.
She was
relation with
praying for
God,
me
yeah?
right before this. So
Okay, good.
LaDonna, if you're
Okay, good.
watching.
I got it. Okay, good. Good.
But that retreat was kind of like my 3:00 moment. It changed things for me, and I can pinpoint that moment made a difference in my life. And after that, I really, rarely missed mass ever again, but it was different. You know, I started seeking a relationship and not just checking boxes at that point. And as it went on, you know, God just has his hand in everything that I do. But so I was a junior at that time, went on, graduated high school, and the year I started at UPJ, LaDonna had been hired to be the campus minister there.
Right.
So I started working in her campus ministry. Eventually I became the president, and God just, you know, carrying me one place to the next.
So a God-centered life.
Yes.
Everything else was fine?
I mean, at that point, I had, you know, the normal struggles that teenagers,
Yeah.
people trying to figure out their lives did. Went on to the Mount, which, like I said, was another thing that God had his hand in. I got to do the assistantship in the campus ministry. I worked with Amy Canish there, another kind of big name in ministry around here. And again, just flourished in my faith. It was towards the end of my time at the Mount, mid-peak COVID, all of those stressors going on. And I suffered a pretty significant trauma from a relationship that most people should never have to go through. And it's funny to look back on that moment. I remember feeling like, or thinking that my total reliance was on God at that point. But looking back, I know now that it wasn't. I definitely fell away from my faith at that point. I fell away almost from believing that God wanted good things for me, which is just insane to think about now, because God's always working for our good, and I can look back and see that now. But in that moment, I didn't.
Did someone hurt you?
Yes.
Okay.
A few people pretty badly. And I've never shared this, but I truly, in those moments in the thick of what I was going through, I couldn't have cared less to be here anymore. Couldn't have cared less. It was a very empty, hopeless time in my life. And I turned to things I shouldn't have. I turned to drinking a lot. And that's where like my conflict is, because I remember all I did was pray. It was like all I did was pray. But I also spent the majority of my nights drinking. And that was the darkest time
So
for me.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You said you prayed and drinking. How did that mix together?
Not well. Not well. Yeah, I don't even know how to put that into words. I think that at that point I wanted to believe that God was still there. And I couldn't convince myself of that.
Becca, how deep was the hurt? You said people hurt you. A relationship, was this a male, female, or friend, or all of the above?
Yeah, it was a male that hurt me initially, and then some disloyalty with another female during the time of that relationship, and there was some physical assault type things that went on, and that's something I've really never shared publicly, but it was just the most empty and hopeless time in my life.
So you, at that time, did you share with anyone what was going on?
My family knew.
Your family
and my
knew?
closest of friends knew. But that was the extent of it.
Was that when you started drinking?
No.
I mean,
I
college
always,
kids drink,
yes,
right? So,
yes.
and a lot of
I
people will
drank
say,
on
well,
a
I drank when I was
social level.
right.
When I didn't have my first beer until I was 20 and a half. It never interested me. I never partied when I was a teenager like the majority of the people surrounding me did. It just wasn't something I cared to do. And then I did, start to drink in college, would go out with my friends on the weekends. Was never something I felt like I needed or relied on or necessarily like wanted to escape from the life I was living, which was what the point it had turned to eventually.
But so when you started drinking, it was, I want to be one of those. I want to fit in.
Yep.
You hear that a lot about young people who later have issues with alcohol. It was always, I wanted to be one of them because they seem to be the ones having the best time.
Right.
Fair?
It was completely, for goodness sake, they took a bus from UPJ to the bar every Thursday night. You could ride the bus there, which keeps people safe from driving, but like it was totally the norm. You get on the bus, they take you there. It was part of what everyone was doing.
So at no
I
point
never knew that. You never doing that. Wow. Okay.
at that point in your life, You didn't recognize anything. It was just what everybody does.
Yeah. I do remember some nights when I probably did it in a little bit too hard and having a sense of guilt. And I actually just shared this with somebody the other day, but I remember being at the bar on a Thursday night, me as, I hope Ladon is watching this, the president of the campus ministry, having a couple drinks, and a guy came up to me and he said, "Hey, you're the Jesus girl."
Oh
Talk
my.
about conviction in that moment, because there's the Jesus girl at the bar.
Why did he call you? Because you were the head of the campus ministry.
And that's how people knew me. So it was almost like for a while there, I had
Were you a
differing lives.
preachy?
No. Well,
I don't
You were in-
think so.
I mean, you didn't counsel anybody of your friends who were drinking at the bar that there are dangers, and
No.
so
At that point, I don't think I saw them. I was just doing what everyone else my age was doing.
did that put you off when he said, "Hey, you're the Jesus girl"? I give him credit. It
still
might have been. It was a
remember it.
pretty good line. I mean, I'm going to tell you, that's a pretty bright guy. He's trying a new approach.
that's burned in there.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah. Sure.
I don't think it changed anything in my behavior at that moment, but I think the fact that I still remember it, was
Matters.
that like
That matters.
6-7 years ago, it mattered somewhere along the lines.
And by the way, folks, I just want to say to you, if you want to ask any questions as we go, you're welcome to do that. Becca, I should have said that in the very beginning, but off we go. I just want to say that.
Where do you think, is there a moment, and I'm sure you've done this post experiences, because you don't realize it when it's happening, but when you stop and you start to look back, you can see little signs here and there. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. When do you think it became something that you realized was, I don't like to use the words out of control, because people who drink, when they drink, believe they're in control. So how could they ever tell when they were out of control? Is that a fair
Yes.
assessment
Yes.
of
Yep.
where you're at that point? Or did it ever get to that point until you reached the depth of where you were that led you to be where you are today? I hope that's
Yeah,
not too
no.
convoluted.
There was one specific night where I drank so much that I didn't remember what happened when I woke up the next morning. And that feeling of, like you said, not having control scared the life out of me.
What'd you drink?
Probably beer.
You never touched whiskey or that you know of, but you could drink enough beer that it was.
And there could have been shots mixed in. I mean, that's what the people like to do, right?
You
So
said
it was
earlier
always-
when we were talking about this, you just felt like you had to fit in. Was that a big thing, you think?
Yeah, it was, because I did growing up, like I said, I never partied, so I felt pretty ostracized, and we'll get to that point how I felt ostracized when I stopped drinking again. But if you weren't drinking, you weren't invited.
Is that true in high school, true in college, and true post-college?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above, yeah.
Did you drink on a regular basis?
In college?
Yeah.
Every Thursday night.
For sure you were
about
on
it.
the bus. Jesus lady was on the bus.
Jesus lady.
She's leading us to the promised land, which is the bar on Scalp. We're going
Woodside.
Woodside?
Woodside was
so
where they bussed us.
the bus
to
went to
every-
Woodside, so we're following Jesus to Woodside.
Yeah.
Was there a large group? Was
On
it
the
a
bus?
regular group? Was it a regular group?
They would have to make several trips to get everyone. I've never thought about it. It's like-
You know, both my daughter, my son, and my wife are Pitt Johnstown grads. And I know my wife's watching. I'm going to have to ask her if she ever made she
They didn't have buses back then, I'm sure.
Well, no, and she was post children when she was working
Yeah,
there and
yeah.
when she got her degree. But I mean, it wasn't like you don't think kids in college drink.
But this wasn't the big issue that brought you here tonight, your college drinking.
Right.
Yeah.
It was when it became something that wasn't fun anymore and more that I was relying on to escape from what I was going through.
So with all the pressure you had, I mean, what has happened to your mother alone would be reason enough to be searching for solace, to do something that would make you feel better. But I don't think that was the only motivation here. Is that a fair assessment of where you were, or was
Yeah.
it strictly your mom?
No, it was like I said, it was a lot of things. It was my mom. It was the kind of the cheating that had happened and the assault that had happened to me. I almost think that I felt at some point like like God was out to get me. Like it was constant. There was always some, and it was never a small inconvenience, because I could deal with the small inconveniences. It was the major life-changing blows and the constant uncertainty of what was going to be happening. Constant worry. I mean, I suffered from anxiety badly.
You had migraines too, if I recall.
Did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like debilitating migraines.
Yes, because
growing
sometimes
up.
she wasn't able to make it on Sunday because
Yeah.
of the migraines. But was this about your mom or other things happening along the way?
The migraines?
No, just all
just
the
in
different.
general. Probably a combination of it all. I think
Okay.
at that point in my life, I hope I remember this correct, 22 or 23, when things kind of hit rock bottom. And I think it had just been that journey of feeling like everything was a giant devastating
And you're
blow.
27 now.
27.
So I
yes.
just that's important. The
Right.
space of time we're talking about. This
Right.
isn't something, oh, I was bad on Thursday and by Friday I was fine.
Right.
This is something that took a while to get there
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
longer to crawl out of.
You said, now they say that people struggle with these things. We're either running away from something or running to something. Which one was it for you?
I think I was running away from dealing with the hurt in my life instead of running towards the God who could have healed it.
Okay. And so therefore, then the drinking continued all through that time.
Right.
When you said you hit rock bottom, that doesn't mean you quit.
No, it doesn't. It's so strange to me that all of the things that during that time in my life when I just unimaginable hurt, something I thought I could never recover from, never heal from, I turned to a significant amount of prayer. I turned to drinking, and I turned to fitness. That was kind of where my initial fitness journey started.
Okay.
There were some concerns for my safety after everything that happened. And I felt safe two places, three, I guess. I felt safe at church. I felt safe at the gym. I felt safe in the woods. So I devoted the majority of my time to hiking and working out. I didn't know what else to do.
When you were at that moment in your life where you weren't sure that you deserved to stay,
Yeah.
and you thought about, did you ever, and I don't mean to, but did it ever get to a point where you seriously entertained that, or it was just people who have been there, and I've got family experience, people who have been there, they always say you don't understand the depth of the despair, the darkness. And if you haven't been there, if you haven't walked there, you can't understand it. Was alcohol a part of that, do you think? Or would you have been there in that area? And I don't want to make it sound like, we discussed at the beginning about whether you're an alcoholic or not an alcoholic, somebody who depends on alcohol, and there's various types. One thing I've learned through my therapy was that, I depended on alcohol at a point in my life, but it wasn't the most important. At least I didn't think it was. I learned a lot in therapy. That's all I.
It's a good place to learn things.
Yeah, if you're a mental health therapist, you understand that.
Yeah, but Lisa just asked, what do you do for a living? I think maybe she jumped in late.
Yeah.
Lisa was the first one to log in, but she must not have been
She
paying
must have missed
attention.
the
Logged in late.
So twofold. I'm a mental health therapist full time, and then I also own a fitness studio gym.
Yeah. So
How does a physical, what's the first part of it? A mental health therapist.
Yeah.
How do they get lost in these things? I'm not asking that for myself.
you weren't a mental health therapist at the lowest point in your life, or you were? I mean, were
I
you
was studying to be one.
okay? So you weren't advising people when
No.
you were in your own,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
But that's helped
gradual.
you, I'm sure, be a therapist,
Yes.
because now you can relate.
Yeah.
I mean, not the drinking, but being in a state of mind where this isn't worth living.
Right.
This life is not worth
Right.
living.
Because other people look at your life and they see all of the
Oh, yeah.
blessings and the wonderful
Oh.
and the opportunities ahead of you. And when you're in that pain, you can't see any of it.
And did you realize that I find it that you were drinking, you were praying a lot, and you were being alone, but the drinking and the praying, I mean,
How do they fit together? I said,
that's one that
the
I'm
question
still
I had before,
that's why I'm still trying
Yeah,
to put
yeah,
that
yeah.
together, because I know in my own case in the worst of the depths of when I was drinking, God was the last thing I was thinking about because I mean, there was nothing wrong with me. I was fine. I could have 12 beers in a night. And so what? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand where I was.
Right.
Did you get, I mean,
I guess
did you
I guess
pray
that,
not to drink or what?
I remember praying to see another day. Truly,
my.
which is it's wow. I haven't thought about this in such a long time. And I think just my experiences growing up and the faith that I had already built, I think that deep down I knew that God was still there. I think that and two, the people who I was surrounded by, a lot of them were holding me up in prayer.
Did they know what was going on with you?
A few of them.
Did these folks that hung around you, did they come on the bus with you or did they go places?
No, so at that point in my life, I was in grad school. So working campus ministry, surrounded by people, and those people knew. They knew what I had been through. They had kind of seen this. This was a several months event of just pain and torture, and like I lost 34 pounds in like 3
Did I know
months
you
time. Yeah, you did. I think I hit it well.
You sure did. You
yeah.
sure did.
Most people with
I'm like
alcohol
now,
depression
she-
hides it very
Now,
well.
I remember, like sometimes the thing you would say to me most, especially was your migraine. We would talk about that.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing we would talk about, I think, for the most part. And what I'd like you to do, if you could, for just a moment, if someone here right now is watching us or going to be watching us this week, who may be in the depths of despair and wondering, am I going to make it through today to the next day? What would you say to them if there's people that are watching you right now?
Man, I would just tell them that God loves them. I remember people telling me that at that point in my life, that God like genuinely loves you. Not like, oh, I love pasta. Oh, I love this. But God loves you. He loves you. And when we love someone, we want the best things for them. We always have their best intentions in mind. And as of lately, even if with some larger inconveniences I've gone through, God still to this day has yet to let me down.
I could say the same thing.
Yeah.
I could say,
Like his
if I
track
screwed up,
record
it's my-
is perfect.
Yeah, if I talk about being messing up, it's
Yeah.
on me.
He's never abandoned me. He's been there even when I was at a point that I couldn't love myself, and that I was disgusted with myself. God, his love for me never changed. And he'll see you through this in the same way that he's
When did you
seen
come to
me through.
realize that as an experience in your life? That I know that I am the beloved.
Man, I don't know. Yeah, because it's so clear to me now, looking back, the way that
Okay.
God carried me.
Can you see, let me put it this way, can you see some moments in the midst of all this where all of a sudden you said, wow, there he is again. And then you slip back. There he is again, and you'd slip back.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes back to a lot of those people who, would reach out and were praying for me, or people who had kind of tried to pull me on a better path. My parents, goodness, my sister, God bless her, for the way that she cared for me and loved me and tried to.
What about Hannah?
Hannah,
Okay.
yeah, Hannah. I don't know
Does
if
she
Hannah's
know about
watching.
you being here?
She does.
Okay,
I
all
called her
right,
for
good,
advice.
okay.
I was going to say, you probably didn't share this with a lot of people, but I'll bet you,
Hannah did know because I was
I'll
talking
bet
to
you
her.
shared it with your sister.
Yeah, I
You
share
probably
everything
shared a
with my
lot
sister.
with your sister.
Yeah, goodness. There were nights that Hannah and I still lived it. Like I couldn't bear to be alone. She would sleep in my room with me. She was an absolute angel.
And you know what? Both of you guys keep it really tight-lipped about a lot of stuff. I kind of sensed there was a little something, but I never caught on.
Becca, I have to tell you, when I went to him and I said, hey, I've got an idea for a program. And he said, what? And I told him about you. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, I didn't know about it either. And that's where I want to go to next. I didn't know. And I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know, other than people that were very, very, very close to you, until I read a Facebook post that went up, you said around June 1st. Tell us about, because it was a stunning admission.
Yeah, I like to hear
And
that
I
too.
reached out to you immediately because I
Yeah, you
said
did.
been there. So, you know,
Yeah.
but
Which
tell
I
us.
didn't know that you had
I
done
know,
this,
and
so it was
that
very,
the people don't know.
No.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They don't know. But
Yeah.
tell us about how that came about.
yeah. And that's been most of my life. People don't know. Even with our mom growing up, unless you were in our circle, you just didn't know. And Hannah and I both, I don't know why we never shared that often what we were struggling
You never
with.
shared a lot. You shared
Yeah.
more tonight about your mom than I think you did in the years that I knew. But you mentioned her about
Probably.
your mom being sick, but you never got into too many details about that. You're pretty quiet about that.
Yeah. So yeah, the Facebook post that Marty is referring to, June 1st, I was 1.5 years, completely sober from alcohol. The year before that, I had done 150 days, which was coincidentally on Memorial Day. And I was like, it's Memorial Day. I'll have a beer. And never, at that point, never jumped back into it full fledged. I would have a beer here or there. But at that point, like it didn't make a difference in my life anymore. I had gone so long without it. So then when this actually started, I did not set out to stop drinking. That was not my intention. I did a fitness challenge called 75 Hard. So you have all these requirements for 75 days. You spend 45 minutes in a workout outside and then an additional 45 minutes in a workout indoors. And I'm doing this in the winter, trudging through the snow for 45 minutes every single day. But one of the stipulations is you don't drink for 75 days. So I did it. I was more concerned about my fitness at that point than I had been before, and I was very determined to just throw myself into a challenge that would be tough for me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the 75 days, I felt so good that I was like, why change anything? Like, the point of this isn't to just jump back into old habits. So I didn't. So I went the whole 150 days and then kind of got back into it a little bit, then rolled around to the next year. And I was like, those couple of beers aren't doing anything positive for me. They're not.
So you were still having a beer or two on occasion.
Yes. Never again out of control, not at that point using it to cope with anything because I had really come to a better place of healing at that point in my life. But I just kind of had that realization, like why? I never woke up in the morning on nights that I didn't drink and thought, my life would be better right now if I had 2 beers last night. Never. But there were plenty of mornings that I woke up and I was like, man, like I shouldn't have had that third one. Shouldn't have, because my head hurts, things like that. And it just at that point in my life was not the role model that I was trying to be. At that point I was working here. I had started teaching fitness classes somewhere else, not even dreaming that I would own a gym at that point in my life. My priorities had just changed.
So that's why you decided. How long were you sober when the post went up?
1.5 years.
Why did it take you so long to be public? Why did you decide to be public?
Yeah, I decided to share it because I believe that I have somewhat of a platform now with my gym and with the things that I do that people kind of look to me for things like this in a way, and how I live my life and how I'm committed to keeping my body and my mind healthy. And I thought that even if I touched one person, helped one person, could be a support for even one person, that it would be worth it. The hesitancy to share for so long, there's always a level of judgment. I had also, and I shared this with Marty and Father a little bit before we started, but the biggest loss for me wasn't even the alcohol. It was the friendships. It was, being invited places. It was just kind of wrestling with my own identity. People tell you, oh, you're not fun anymore. You're not fun if you're not drinking. That's a lot to sit with, to kind of challenge that and figure out if you actually do like yourself for you. And for the person that God made you to be,
Yeah.
So that would have put the pressure. That would have made the pressure even more intensified. Here I am. I know I'm doing the right thing, and everybody's walking away from me. I don't want people to walk away. I don't necessarily want to go back to where I don't remember what I drank last night when I woke up in the morning. But hell, when I drank, people liked me. Now they don't like me. That had to be very, very difficult for someone
Yes.
your age.
Yes.
Do you feel lonely?
Devastating. Now?
Yeah.
No.
Were you lonely then, though?
Horribly. Horribly.
Whenever you stopped drinking, you lost your friends. Now, I need to go back. Now, I know, you did the 150-day thing. Now, before that, you were drinking a lot.
Yeah.
What's a lot?
Not every day. I had there was a point where it was closer to every day. And then there was a point where it was just on the weekends, but out of control. And so up until that point, I say that wasn't my intention for the challenge, and I still don't think that it was, but I knew that I had wanted to make a change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that old world, and you have the world of friends with all that.
Yeah.
You have a culture. You're in the middle of a culture.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that culture goes away. Now, and I don't know, you guys can correct me with this, especially with AA, they would say, you don't just stop drinking, you got to change your whole life.
Yes,
You gotta change your
100%.
whole life.
Part of therapy teaches you that. Like in my case, I didn't drink at home. I never drank at home. I didn't, my therapist said, well, you needed to survive. You had to drink No, I might go 2 weeks without a drink, but then I'd go out and I'd stay out. Okay. I mean, I would get off work at 6:30, head to a neighborhood tavern that I got to be very well known in and very friendly. In fact, at one time they called me, not Radovonic, they called me gin and tonic, even though I never drank gin.
Yeah.
I never drank gin. I hate gin. I never drank.
Everybody knew you was
But,
Marty. Gin and
okay, so
tonic.
when I tell you that I drank, I'm just telling you that I had, plus it's not like I could hide going in anywhere. People knew me, but I never drank at home. I just couldn't stop when I went out. So I thought I had complete control of this. If I don't go out, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to need alcohol. Took a lot of therapy to understand that that's not.
So you change your culture. You got to change what you do. You gotta change everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do. I mean, you would do anything to fit in. And that's why when she says nobody, because she had the same level of friends that would go to the bar and everybody would have, oh, Becca's such a lot of fun. Becca tells the best jokes. Becca does this. Becca does that. Because she looks better when she's drinking.
I'm not that quiet girl that's...
Yeah. Right? So
How did you change your culture? Because you said you're not lonely anymore, but you were.
Yeah.
And how did you shift that culture? Because
did you get to the point where you figure, I got to change this? I just know I have to change it. And that probably was more frightening than anything else you'd ever done.
Yeah, at that point, I was extremely committed to not going back, no matter what that costs.
that's got to be a grace, I think.
Yeah. And it's like I still love my friends dearly. I still love to see them, and things like that. But I had to choose, not necessarily between my friends and something else, but I had to choose myself in that moment and not continue. I just knew that it wasn't what I wanted, and it wasn't benefiting
So the loneliness, then.
Yeah. I remember sitting on the first time that I had my long sprint, the first 150 days. I was actually at the beach on day 100. My best friend lived at Myrtle Beach at that time. And I remember sitting on the beach sobbing. I had thought this is perfect. Day 100, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to feel just time to celebrate and really enjoy what I've accomplished. And I felt so just lonely and had not a clue who I was at that point that I sat on the beach and just cried.
You cried because of where you were or where you had been or the fear of where you were going?
I think some of all of it. I was so lonely. And at that point, I had really internalized that I was not worth spending time with if I was not drinking.
So your
that's,
own.
That's pretty huge. And what did you do next? Because you're telling me you didn't pick up. So
yeah, that day
Was she a
100 on
drinker?
the beach, my friend.
Yeah.
Socially, she I don't think she had a drink the entire time I was there.
She wasn't pushing you with all
No,
that. Okay,
absolutely.
okay,
She
okay,
was
yeah.
one, and it's unfortunate that she lives so far away because she's always supported everything that I've done. I reached out to a friend that day. Her name is Lisa Barnes. I hope that she comes across this at some point. She was very extremely new to her faith journey. Had never known God in her life, and she's probably 15, 20 years older than me. And she had been sober for a year. And I texted her just all of the things that I was feeling.
That time.
There's a
Yeah,
picture
that
of her and you on Facebook, isn't
there
there?
is. Yeah.
I found that today.
She was a fitness instructor. I mean, God just really weaved our lives together.
And I wasn't creeping on you.
Yeah.
I was
She
just
wasn't.
in
She
background.
wasn't.
I hope she. I'm gonna have to send this to her after. Man, I should have told people.
Yeah.
But yeah, she. I think I was afraid, Father Mark, to tell. Like, here I am sharing this story for the first time. I think part of me hoped that nobody watched.
Yeah, but you know what? You are. This is your
They're watching, by the way.
your
They're watching.
testimony about this, because nothing is as personal, and I'm speaking from experience, nothing is as personal as knowing what that depth is like and finding a way to work your way out of it and sharing your story. I mean, the whole point, when Father mentioned AA before, Bill Wilson, who founded Alcoholics Anonymous, it was all about telling your story, right? Now, I never went to AA. I was in group therapy for a while, but it's just, that's part of it, and that's maybe the toughest. So what you're doing right now is courageous beyond the word.
And I'm glad, all this, But anyway, I'm going to go back to what you did with that
Oh yeah.
loneliness.
So I
Because a lot of these young folks are battling the same thing, So.
I reached out to Lisa, and she kind of tough loved me a little bit, and she said, what is one beer going to change for you? And it nothing. But she was a friend who understood, and I think that if I could offer that to anybody, I can gladly be, and I would love to be a friend that understands. And maybe we can include some of my contact information at the end of this, because
Sure,
I'm very,
absolutely. We would
very
like to do
passionate
that.
about just supporting and loving people, especially when they're lonely through these journeys.
What's the name of your gym?
Redemption Fitness.
Why that?
Fitness.
Yeah, I remember very specifically the night that I decided on that name. I was in the woods.
Redemption Fitness.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I was in the woods hunting.
Typical Carnival Valley.
And here's what's important about that name. The T in redemption is,
Across, yes.
so when you
it's-
see it,
yeah,
whether
on
you,
a T-shirt, on a hoodie, on our sign, it's.
Did you bring one with you?
I actually, I was at the gym this morning and I set out T-shirts for both of you, and then I left them there. So I'll drop them off next
that's
week.
okay. That's okay. But so
but
you just,
yeah.
did you decide, how did you decide to go into business? Because I'm sure the title came as you
She
were.
was in the paper
Yeah.
with that business. I know that.
Was.
Oh yeah, she's been,
Yeah.
and she was very public about it. I mean, it was like an awesome thing. I remember when I first saw this. I didn't know about, because you started or planning your business before you went public,
Yeah.
right? So, and you probably, that was a struggle too. Like, oh my God, I'm trying to start a business now. I'm going to tell people that I have this past, and is that going to?
All the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that too, even my business even just solidified my journey further, because I want to be a good role model. I want to be the type of person that, walks the walk and not just preaches it to everyone else.
This just struck me. Do you think if any of the, what'd you teach here? Religious ed? What
Yeah,
grades?
6th through 8th.
So it's possible some of them might be watching or will learn of this. Do you think they'd be surprised?
Probably. Yeah. And I too
surprised,
was,
surprised.
I was further removed from that dark time in my life when I was teaching here.
So-
So I was really working on my healing journey at that
Okay.
point.
Did
So I
that
do
help
think you
you?
would be surprised.
Did that help you?
being
that-
here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Why?
Like I said, they were a motivation for me to do the right thing, because I didn't want to show up here and talk the talk.
That's what
and not
teaching
walk the
did to
walk.
me. I think teaching was a motivation for me to do the right thing.
I
done.
cared, and I still do so deeply for those kids I worked.
All right, let's step back again
I wanna know
to.
by the name. You didn't tell me the name.
Okay.
Well, I want to talk before you get to the name on why, with the concept of why did you decide that this was something you. I mean, you're a
Oh,
mental
right.
health
Yeah,
therapist.
yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got all that background.
Okay.
What would lead you to think, well, let's go into business? Because I don't have anything else going on in my life.
So like I said, my fitness journey kind of started heavily when I was still in the pits of despair. And I stayed incredibly consistent with it. And at one point in time, someone had reached out to me and asked me if I would like to teach at a studio
Okay.
that she was opening. So I went there and I taught spin classes and bar classes for about a year. And then things just didn't quite work out. The business got shut down. And that was kind of like, well, it's now or never. I loved doing this. I loved the community that I had created and been with. The people, I cared so deeply for the people who came and worked out with me, and they pushed me to be better. I had a reason to kind of stay on top of things. And I still don't know that I thought that I could do it. My boyfriend was a very driving force. He also owns a small business. He owns an excavation, Ace Excavating. I'll give a little shameless plug there if you're looking for excavation work.
But he's been a big part of your
Yeah.
journey.
And
right?
what's so special, one of the just many special things about Craig, but I met Craig after I stopped drinking, and he has never once seen me take a sip of alcohol, and just loves me.
So
which-
this was a
There you
person who
go.
didn't
Yeah,
drink. Everybody else, you had to drink to be accepted.
yeah. And at that point, when I met him, I was so committed to not.
Is this, as I'm listening, this is almost a journey of finding yourself.
It is, yeah.
You know, and so alcohol is part of it, and everything. And of course, the pressure with that, but it's really that journey of finding yourself, which everybody's got to go through sometimes.
Right.
Or maybe I'm wrong about that. A lot of people never do.
Yes.
A lot of people never
Yes.
do. They never really find themselves.
Yes.
So, and
Absolutely.
you see it as a therapist, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which I think is the great journey.
I
of
think
life.
people run from it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
they,
think so
they
too.
run from finding the people that the person that God wants them to be and that He created them to be, because it takes a lot of sacrifice.
Yes, but it's worth the sacrifice to
it
do
sure
it.
is. Yeah.
So you decided you wanted to stay in the business.
Yeah.
Being about to become a young businesswoman has to be daunting. I mean, yeah, it's
still
something,
daunting.
you know, it's something that it's what you love. I can do this, da 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 da. But now you're talking about, I got to deal with banks. I got to find a place. I got to buy equipment. I got to hire people. I got to do all of the things. You know, people think of business as, well, you just open up a shop one day and you don't worry about it. You just go do it. It's a lot more than that. Did you challenge yourself through that whole process of, because there had to be barriers, I'm
Yeah.
sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a very specific difference between the barriers I faced and the spiritual warfare that I faced.
What are the
because
differences?
there were barriers like I didn't have the first clue on how one starts a business. Like that was a barrier, and
Yeah, that would be a pretty big
barrier.
one,
That's
right?
a barrier.
but when I did actually get things to a point that this was going to be a real thing, the spiritual, and when I decided this was going to be a Christian-based fitness studio specifically, I would not describe it as anything less than spiritual warfare, the things that I went through. I mean, 3 weeks before I was supposed to open and the world knew that we were opening, I had a completely unexpected, horribly significant medical emergency in the middle of the night and ended up in the hospital for several days. I couldn't work out. I couldn't lift a paintbrush. And we were, you know, in the deepness of renovating my entire space that hadn't been used in 15 years.
You didn't think, God, what are you doing here? What's this all about?
I don't think that I did in that moment. And I mean, goodness, 2 nights before the studio was supposed to open, there was a huge conflict with some of the people who were in the building, totally unrelated to me. And somebody came in and changed all the locks, and I couldn't access the building 2 nights before I was supposed to open. Like it was
great.
it was tremendous, the things that happened that I would truly say were spiritual warfare. At that point, I think I was in a different headspace. I was extremely motivated to make
Now
this be
I'm
a
going to
thing.
show them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get there. Jerry, you said you have a
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we didn't want to. I didn't want to interrupt much because we were on a roll there. But I just want to get caught up on a couple comments and
Sure.
then one in specific here. Like Lisa and Sherry are both giving you a lot of support, saying, you know, you've come a long way, Becca. You should be very proud of yourself. And
Yeah.
and Sherry had something interesting too. She says those people weren't really your friends, is her comment. I think we want affirmation. Our friends want affirmation that their lifestyle is positive. So when you leave that's kind of a problem for them, I would say, right?
And I'm gonna take that back to what Father Mark said, because those specific people will always be my friends and I will always love them. I think, like Father
Right.
Mark said, people don't always come to that place of finding themselves or of and maybe, you know, maybe at the end of the day for them it's just not a problem, and for me it is. You know,
Do you ever, that's a good point. Do you ever feel like, why me?
sometimes. I think at first I did. Now no, because like it's almost like I remember talking with the students here about the commandments and how the rules set us free, and that's how I feel now, just totally free.
That's yeah.
yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, it was finally I don't know. Is this LaDonna?
Is that UPJ, CCM?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Did you think back to any of the AA meetings that you went to in Camden and on mission trip? All the stories or reasons those people lost everything because of their drinking. Did any of that help?
I don't know if it helped in that moment. I was thinking about that. So what LaDonna's referring to, we would go on these really significant mission trips every year. We usually bounce back between Camden, New Jersey, and Germantown, which is right outside of Philly. And we had the
Not great
opportunity.
places.
Not great. No.
No.
Far from it. God bless Kevin and LaDonna for having
Yeah.
the bravery and the courage to take us there.
Yeah.
But we had this very unique opportunity in Camden, New Jersey to sit in on some AA and NA meetings.
Which is kind of rare.
It's very rare. To get to just, and these people just welcomed us so graciously. I remember some of their stories, and maybe they did stick with me more than what I thought, because you did watch these people lose everything, or these people who had been stuck in the addiction from a time that before they even knew what they were, kids that had been drinking since they were 14 and they were in their 60s now. They didn't even know what they didn't know at that point. It was very humbling. But yeah, all of these things, God had a purpose for everything.
And
I was
I remember
experiencing.
my therapist said, you should try AA. And I remember saying to her, I said, I can't go to AA. Not because of who I am, but because of who I am. I said, if I go to a meeting like that, nobody's going to focus on their own journey. They're all going to focus on me, because I'm the famous guy over there that has. And I said, I just can't do that. It wasn't about me being public or having to talk, because I wanted that. I wanted to talk. But I said, I'm not going to be a help to anybody. Well, she got me into a private group of professionals. You have to be invited to be able to go to this group. And I will tell you, I don't know if this part of the process. I walk into my first meeting and I'm looking around the room going, you? These were people I knew. I had no idea. None. That was I actually said to myself at that moment, okay, God, I get it now. I know why you brought me here. Because it helped. It made me realize that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the only one that was having issues like this. I will tell you, I'm not going to give names, but 2 of the people who were at this room were people I used to party with, and we made eye contact immediately. Another one was a young woman who I knew in a different capacity, and I was like, and one of them was a priest, and I had no idea. But that helped me tremendously, because it made me realize that God was moving me in this direction, but he wasn't making me do it alone. And what coming out, you're the one that has to do it, but you're not going to do it unless you have help around you. And Craig, is that his name?
Craig, yeah.
Craig has been a big reason for you to be where you are.
Absolutely.
Not just building the business, but building the better Becca.
And LaDonna too has been a.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
know LaDonna.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, LaDonna is similar to my sister. She's loved me through the best of me and the worst of me. So
do you think you're at that point now where you're not worried about anything that's ever going to happen to you again?
I would get to that point,
Well, you know what I
Yes.
mean. Do you think you'd slide back into and I mean, as strong as you are now, that's the one thing that they teach you in alcohol addiction, is that's a battle you're going to fight the rest of your life.
I don't think things are just different now, because yes, I've healed from some of the major traumas and things, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, my mom is still dying, to put it as frankly as I can. It's still a full-time job for my dad and my sister and I, just providing care and keeping her comfortable. And God, my dad is a saint. He will be one day, for the care that he's shown my mom. I've learned a lot from my dad through that.
That's living the vow.
Yeah, to a fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I rely on God fully at this point, as opposed to before, when I think I was just grasping for straws.
I honor your resolve, and it's a real echo for me. Your resolve. It's a beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing. And I think that resolve is an aspect of grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there's no question. There's no
Absolutely.
question, because
Yeah.
you probably, and you'd be the one that would say it better than anybody, but if you hadn't had that person right behind you that would catch you if you stumble and fall, and I can't even tell you how many times I've thought of that. And the journey of mine has been decades, and there's been backsliding. It's happened. One time I went 20 years without a drink. And it's like, well, I've been there this long. I can do this. And the problem always was he wants to share a comment with you.
That's from
I love her too.
Yeah. We put up your website.
Oh, Redemption.
Redemption.
Is
Thank
that what you
you.
did, Steve?
Yes.
Thank
Now
you.
tell
There's
us
your
about
website.
the sign. Why we call it what we call it.
Okay. All right. Yes. So I'm in the woods. I'm hunting. I think some of my best praying in the woods just alone. That's just where I feel God constantly when
Hunting.
I'm there hunting.
What do you hunt? I'm just
Deer,
Okay.
deer, turkey, bear. But
Bear?
I do. That's probably another thing that you all didn't know about.
Have you harvested a bear?
No, I've harvested deer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to shoot at a bear yet, so.
Gee whiz.
I eat
my
all
kind
of
of
the
girl.
meat. It provides for my family.
All right, back
So
to
so
your
we
story.
need now pictures of Becca in camo.
They're on. Look on Facebook, Marty. They're
I
on.
have. I actually knew you were. I knew you were an outdoors person. So when Father just had a class today, which we completely forgot about because both Joyce and I wanted to come, and then we realized when we saw everybody coming out of church and we came for 11. How do you pray? What is prayer to you? Is it a regiment? Is it a conversation? Is it a little of both? Or because I think that's one thing you could help people, because prayer has obviously been something very important in your life. So how do you pray?
Yeah, primarily for me, it's a conversation. Yeah, I think I got to a point in my life where I had to learn to just be brutally honest with God. He already knew. He knew what I was feeling. He knew what I was going through. And that's when it became extremely conversational for me. I do have, some regiments. I love a good novena. That was something that I had kind of learned in the thick of this too. But primarily it's just a conversation.
Bible reading.
Yeah. Some small group Bible reading, which is really good. Some even that's something we've incorporated into the gym.
Are you in a small group? Oh, I thought she was. I think I was. Oh,
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I
Are you
probably
a
should be.
regular churchgoer?
Yes.
And
Yeah, but-
Catholic and Christian? You
Catholic.
still-
We were just between here and Resurrection. Sometimes Father George is our. I live about 3 minutes from Resurrection now, which is pretty cool. And Father George is my. He said the masses when I was at UPJ.
that's right. Yes.
Which is just
yes.
Yes. He was another person who had plenty of grace for me during my life, and it's nice to
Good.
sit in his church.
Why did you name it Resurrection?
Redemption.
It's
Redemption. Okay,
Redemption,
yes, I was
redemption,
praying.
and then the
Go ahead.
significance
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
logo.
Yeah, so
On the
I
t-shirt.
called it
Logo.
Redemption.
Can we put the logo up there, Steve?
On the logo of the T-shirt she forgot for us. but, you
that
know,
one.
I
Okay.
know.
okay.
So at that point, I was just praying. I knew that I wanted the name and what I was doing to honor the Lord in some way. And I was kind of thinking about my own fitness journey, my own journey to having this opportunity to start a fitness studio. And a lot of myself was redeemed through that process. God had redeemed a lot of me. I think I was redeemed back to who I was meant to be.
That is the story right
yeah.
there in my mind. There it is.
And I wanted a place where people could come and redeem whatever they needed to. If they needed to get their mental health back in order, if they needed to get their physical health.
Keep going. Don't
Okay.
worry about it.
If they needed to get their physical health back in order, if they just needed to find a community like I did of people that would love and support them wherever they were, kind of a come as you are mentality. So I felt like that name was all encompassing of what I was hoping to build.
And what's the T?
The T is a cross.
And that's important. That's
Yes.
more important than
Yes.
that's part of the whole thing, right? Now, I have to say, in marketing, you always want to look your best. You want to look as pretty as you can look, as well-dressed as you can look. And this young lady and all of her pictures about her business is this sweaty mess. And her hair is just soaked, right?
Just on Facebook. What do I look
Yes,
like?
yes. But the point is that I love, because that's true and honest. There are a lot of people that would say, oh, no. Let me go shower. Let me get ready before we post pictures. But the whole point of this is you're working. God's helping you get where you get, and you got to do the work.
Right.
This isn't something you just walk in the door and you're going to feel like you're blessed and
Right.
amen and
what
go
a
out.
good analogy, because that transfers to our faith as well. You got to put the work and the effort in.
I'm telling you, if you look at her
Yes,
pictures on
yes, yes.
Facebook, the hair is plastered, right? because you've
Yes.
worked out and there's
Yes.
sweat everywhere, and so are all the other people who are working out. And these are people that they're agreeing to let you take their picture and put it online because they're doing the work and they
Yeah.
want people to know it doesn't happen without doing the work.
Absolutely.
Thomas Merton, one of my heroes, said, know thyself. To know thyself is to know God. To know God is to know thyself.
Becca, quickly, we know that Redemption Fitness is one. How can people get in touch with you if they want to hear more of your story?
Yeah.
There's, there's
That's the.
Part of my logo.
He's trying to get it up. That's half the logo.
okay.
On all social media, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, both my personal pages and my business pages, and I can be reached through any of those. Or stop down at the gym and check it out. You know, I kind of try and pride us on having something for everyone. So any age, any fitness level, you're welcome. We even have classes for kids. But we have, spin and cardio kickboxing and Pilates, and we just have a wide array of truly something for a running group. So
And I'm telling you, the picture of you on the bike with the leg out, that should be part of your logo. That should be part of your logo, because the determination in your face and that person right there to fight back, especially now that I know the story of Becca LaBar. Then I just thought it was a great marketing tool. Of course, your hair is perfect in that picture.
and
isn't
not
it?
sweaty.
Hey, Becca, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
th-
I know this wasn't
Yeah,
easy.
we're out of
It wasn't.
time. Did you expect that thing?
No, I didn't. It was better than I expected. I was very nervous. But nothing to be
Well,
nervous.
thank you
So
for
hopefully
being
a lot
such
of folks will be able to watch you as the thing unfolds, and
inspiring,
thank you very much for coming.
so inspiring. And I hope somebody who's in that place that you were will know by what you said tonight, there
Yes.
is a way out.
Yeah. And there's a friend right here, so please reach out to me.
Love it.
Very nice.
Love it.
Very
Becca,
nice.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Becca.
Say
very
goodnight,
much.
Father.
See everybody. Oh, we got it all messed up there.